Today's show is brought to you, of course, by racingpicks.com. Free expert analysis available. So easy. Just click on the expert picks area and sign up today to receive great content from the likes of Matt Bernier, Andrew Champagne, and I'm contributing there a little bit too nowadays. So make sure you check it out. You're doing us a favor if you sign up for racingpicks.com today. Hello and welcome to the racingpicks.com podcast. This is our show for Friday, August 14th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you in the Degenerate Flophouse once again. We've got a great show for you today. 3 guests looking once again at Saratoga, Woodbine. Big afternoon on Saturday of stakes racing at Woodbine, and then also out west to Del Mar. Terrific guest to talk to you about all 3 of those jurisdictions. And it all starts off with a man I've been eager to have on these In the Money airwaves for a while. He has had many members of our team on his various shows, the current incarnation of which is called the StuCast. He is Alan Studer. Alan, how are you today?
I'm doing great, PTF. Thanks for having me on. This is like a dream come true, because 5 years ago, when I first started listening to you and JK, this was like a dream. So to be here, it's very surreal. So thank you for having me on.
Well, as I always say, flattery will get you everywhere. So thank you for the kind words. I did love the fact that you told me that we helped really deepen your appreciation of horse racing and made you become more of a fan, that you were more of a general sports fan before. What is it about racing other than our mellifluous voices that attracted you to the game?
Well, besides your melodic tones and your love of scotch, I really dig the puzzle, man. I mean, there's nothing compares to being at the track with the D-Gens and the Railbirds at like 7:30 in the morning. I love it. I love the puzzle. I love the sporting aspect of it. So, you know, it's almost as good as watching the Tigers in the World Series, but, you know.
I think you got to go back a minute for that, if I'm not mistaken. Let's talk. We've got a lot of Michigan sports references coming on today's show, given that Drew Coatney will be with us here later. He's the over/under on references to the Red Wings is 0.5. We'll see if it cashes today. Before we dive into these races, Alan, I did want to ask you one more question about the StuCast. Where can folks find it, and what type of stuff do you cover on there?
So thank you for that, PTF. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. We're trying to cover every sport, including horse racing. You've been on. Andy Serling's a good friend. He comes on. We try to get like just different voices. So if your bag is college football, hockey, whatever, we're talking it.
That's very cool. You've got a good overlap with the title sponsors whole vibe, the racingpicks.com gang. I know you were very vocal last week about helping promote my first written piece for the team over there. Have you had a chance to spend much time on the racingpicks.com site yourself?
I logged in maybe a couple months ago when Matt first was putting it out, and I love it. I love reading him. Andrew Champagne does a really good job. Carl Nicholson, I've been reading him. I read yours last week on Sunday. I think it's great. It's a great forum to read and get a thorough, in-depth analysis that, you know, podcasting's a tough racket. So you can't always have a podcast every 10 seconds. We would be divorced living together, drinking deep bourbon. And so I love it. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Good stuff. Okay, let's dive into these races. We start off with race number 7. It goes at 4:32 p.m. on Saturday. I'm going to go first. I usually have the guests go first, but I'm going to go first just because this is a horse I've been waiting to run back, who I think will get a good trip. Number 8, Jimmy Jazz, maybe moved a little bit too early last time into a hot pace in a race that flowed ultimately from behind. I think the rider switch today to Irad Ortiz. This one could get a perfect trip this time around, and I like his chances to end up in the winner's circle. What did you think of this 3-and-up New York bred allowance race, Alan?
Well, it's a cheers race, right? It's that 25th of July Saratoga race. Everybody knows your name. They're all back here. Jimmy Jazz, I'm friends with Dreammaker Racing. They've always been high on this horse. It's a hard-knocking horse. Jimmy Jazz is making the number, right? I really like Mo Reddy. And when you watch the replay of that race, Mo Reddy was like Barry Sanders. It caught just in a line of blockers, finally gets clear, gallops out like he's a freight train, blows right past Turbo Drive. I think you see improvement. Second off a 230-day layoff. Give me Mo Reddy.
I can see it. The second time gelding, the second off the bench. I thought this was the case, just very quickly, where the gallop out was maybe a little bit of a product of the race flow and how hot it was. And in those situations, I do prefer the horse that makes the first move in Jimmy Jazz. But Mo Reddy is absolutely one I'd have on any backup. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time arguing, but I did want to explain my preference for Jimmy Jazz over Mo Reddy, though I do think both belong on the tickets. And let's move along with that to our 8th race. We've got the Saratoga Derby. Christophe Clement holding such a strong hand in here with both Decorated Invader and also Gufo, who looks to make it 5 on the bounce. Alan, I'll let you start with our first stake of the Saratoga portion of the show. Who do you like in here?
Yeah, obviously Decorated Invader is going to be on a ticket. That last race, I think our friend Benny South Street calls it fake fast. Get smoking, runs out. 8 lengths, 9 lengths, 10 lengths clear the field, and an accordion effect happens. Decorated Invader just picked up the pieces, and I don't know that domestic spending is all that great. So, and it also looked like Decorated Invader was really, really huffing and puffing at the end there. I think this is a much stronger field. Colonel Liam. Apparently, I'm going to be the world's biggest Pletcher fan this weekend, but Colonel Liam, that allowance race was really impressive. The number was really nice. I think if he can sit a nice trip and stalk, it's going to be a little bit harder for Decorated Invader.
I don't disagree. That number came back so strong on the buyer speed figure scale, over 100, that I wonder if Colonel Liam isn't just going to be buried at the windows with as fast as that race was, as hot as Todd Pletcher is. And I do think there are some reasons for folks to, well, certainly you made the best point of all. It is a much tougher field. You talked about Decorated Invader being tired after the race. Well, the closing sectionals he came home in, I think he had license to be. There was also the fact that he hit the gate, which I think could sometimes take a little bit of the sting out of a horse's run. I'm pressing Decorated Invader, but I do think you are wise to look at Colonel Liam as a small backup. And Field Pass, the more I look, the more I like. I think trip-wise... What's that?
Those are the 3 I'm using.
Yeah. I mean, this one's going to get an absolutely perfect trip as well. But I'm definitely more team Decorated Invader than you are. But I will include, I'm thinking I'm going to do 60% of the play through Decorated Invader, and then depending on how the betting goes, I'll divide the rest of the play between Colonel Liam and Field Pass. I suspect Field Pass might be an awful lot of value. We'll just have to see how things shake out. But let's move on to the featured race of the day, Alan. It is the Grade 1 Alabama, 1.25 miles on the dirt for these 3-year-old fillies, one of Saratoga's most historic races. And did you tip your hand already about who you like in here when you mentioned being a crazy Pletcher fan?
Yeah, a little bit, and I'm gonna follow JK and go Spices Nice in here. I mean, Swiss Skydiver. There's a lot of ways he wins this race, or she. Excuse me, I always mess that up. You can't
get it wrong. I let it go in a claimer, but in the Alabama, you got to get it right.
You know what? You're absolutely right. When I get canceled, you'll get a apology letter from me. Spices Nice is. I think there's more there. And Swiss Skydiver, I'm going to bet against her getting the 1.25 miles. And I think the last few races have shown that the further is not necessarily better for her. So give me Spice is nice. I'm going to roll with JK.
Well, he does have that stellar all-time head-to-head record against me. I did get one back last week to improve it overall. I think it's now.
What's a more impressive record? That record he holds against you, or Andy and Anthony Owen, Andy, like 85 lunches at this?
It's pretty good. I think their lunch thing is plus or minus 85, and ours is about 19 and 174. But I think Swiss Skydiver wins. I don't think the distance is an issue. I think if you look at the pace figures, she's run early. I don't think she's going to have to run anywhere near that fast. I think it's going to take the stamina out of the equation to some degree. I think it was just a really nice foe in Art Collector who beat her last time. Came back obviously to frank that form. It's Swiss Skydiver to the hoop for me. I'm one way in here in the horizontals, and I'm glad to hear if there's enough wise guys theme against her, maybe I can get something. I mean, I can't imagine she's not going to be odds on. I was thinking she'd be long odds on, but I mean, I think 3 to 5, 4 to 5, you'd be getting tremendous value. She might even go shorter than that, but I'll still look to be alive in horizontals heading through the Grade 1 Alabama. You can join JK against me in that theoretical head-to-head. But let's talk about these last couple of races, because these really could be where we get things determined in terms of maybe unlocking a little bit of a price in this pick 5 at Saratoga on Saturday. And we move on to race 10. It's a 3 and up New York bred allowance going 5.5 on the turf. And this is one where I'm not super creative. I want a whole lot of Shiraz on my tickets. I love the Mike Maker claim back angle. I think pretty clearly Shiraz is going to end up being the best speed. There are some other horses on pace figures that could be close, but I think Shiraz is just going to be so much sharper. And with that inside draw, I think he might just go on with it. I'm very interested in this one, and most of my play is going to go right through the number 2 in race number 10 at Saratoga Saturday. How do you see it?
So that makes a lot of sense, that pick, considering you're looking like Hunter Thompson just getting back from the Bahamas right now. You got to use pretty much the entire field in this race. I wanted to focus on one though. I'm gonna press a little bit as an A. Valmont, the 6. Now, aside the fact that me and Ray Handel are boys, we go skeet shooting, we hold hands, we frolic on the beach together from time to time.
He's a paddock bar regular.
Hey, we're just best buddies, right? He's my guy. Valmont had a horrible trip. June 25th race, 2 back. Last time caused a little bit of trouble. Depending on, gets bumped up. It happens. I think 3rd off a layoff, this horse, the pace kind of sets up where if he can stalk, I think he could hit the number and sure as heck has a chance to win. Really hard for me to throw at anybody in this race.
I like the Valmont idea as a value play, because I do think, just looking at pace figures, he's going to be in a fantastic spot. And you say if he can stalk, he's stalked successfully in the past. So I don't know why he wouldn't be able to. Is he quite up to the form and figure levels of a horse like Shiraz, who I do believe is coming out of some races that are a little bit better.
I'd even give a look too to Quan BC at 15-1. I don't think Quan BC is like completely crazy either. I think this is a very salty group.
So when you have an opinion like this, what do you do? Will you try to play a minimum iteration to all and then go back and press the ones that you like? How do you approach a race like this where, for me, I'm more inclined to take Shiraz, maybe back up with Call Me Harry if he's ready. I like on your say so, including Valmont maybe, but I'm a little bit more willing to just take my chances with the ones I like. It sounds like you want to at least have some combinations where you're pretty darn well spreaded in here.
So yeah, this race, I would press maybe 4 A's, 3 B's, because I want to be alive to the next race where I have a strong opinion.
All right. Well, I have a strong opinion too. It's going to be funny if it's the same horse, because I do think there's one in here with a serious wise guy look that English and Irish listeners are going to want to get locked in on the price, because I think there might be a little bit of a discrepancy in the morning line and what this horse goes off at. But I'll let you go first for this 3 and up New York bred maiden claimer 40 going 1 mile on the turf. And just to help you out, once again, we're dealing with males this time.
Oh, thanks, Emma Kennedy. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna eat some chalk. I stole it from JK's house. I'm gonna eat the chalk here. Bricko, to me, should have won. Been nipping at it. And when you look up Jimmy Bond's stats the last 5 years in these, 3 and up New York claiming races, he's at 22% winning. I'll take that. I think this horse is just itching to move up in class and get to that next level. Give me Bricko. And of course, I think the logicals here make the most sense. I take it you have a wise guy horse that me and you're going to have like one of those Switchblade West Side story fights going on here in a second. So please enlighten me. I'm all ears.
Well, I will agree with you that I want 2 horses, and one is Bricko. But the other horse I think is very interesting and might be a bit shorter price than this when the actual betting begins, is number 3, Brickyard. Because this is a horse, just ran 14 days ago, had license to need anyway. Very, very difficult trip. Trouble in multiple spots. The stretch out, when you look at the dam side pedigree, the stretch out should suit this one to a T. Not that far off on raw figure anyway. I think that has multiple reasons to go up. I'm going to be all about Brickyard and Bricko. We're gonna hope that what is that, a phoneme, the Bruh phoneme. We're hoping that's going to do very well in the nightcap here at Saratoga on Saturday. I'm going to take those 2 and be ready to rock and roll.
Sounds good to me. I'll include on your say so, but if it's just Bricko all the way and Brickyard just runs up the track, expect a knock on your door.
That's very intimidating. You're an intimidating looking fellow, and with what I know about your background, you're not a guy to mess with either. So I'll be definitely putting the deadbolt on the door. Alan, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts and your insights. We'll definitely be doing some more collaborating soon.
Thank you very much, PTF. Love the show. Love racing picks. I love what you guys do, and I can't wait to run it back again.
Cheers, my man. There's no better time to open up a TwinSpires account, twinspires.com or the TwinSpires app. If you use the promo code ITM200, you are eligible for a free $200 bet. A fantastic promotion. We encourage folks to do it and help us out. Find other people who are interested in racing and might not have a TwinSpires account. Let them know about this great offer with the Kentucky Derby run-up happening. No better time, as I said up top, to get your twinspires.com account, twinspires.com, or the TwinSpires app. I'm very excited about this segment of the Players Podcast for today because it is a loaded Saturday of racing at Woodbine. We've got stakes races. We've got pointers for the upcoming Queen's Plate, of course, rescheduled for September. We have the Queen's Plate prep and then also the Woodbine Oaks, traditionally an important prep race for that, and lots of other stuff as well. And to talk about it all with us, we have the In the Money house expert when it comes to all things Woodbine. You can find his content over at inthemoneypodcast.com, writing up the late pick for every Saturday and Sunday. Back on the show after a brief absence, my buddy, Drew Coatney. Drew, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, Pete. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the stakes action at Woodbine this weekend here. Plenty of good stuff to talk about.
Now, a lot of the time we just do the late pick 4, but the nature of this card is such that I feel like we need to start in race number 7. It is the grade 3 bid. Easy for me to say. I'm reading off Timeform US, and I almost called the race the Bid Venture. It's the Bold Venture, and it sees the return to the races of Pink Lloyd, the Canadian superstar, a horse that Tommy Massis has said, if ever showed up in a Breeders' Cup Sprint, would have his attention. Now, the interesting thing about this race is that it's one of the few local races that Pink Lloyd has never won. Had the big excuse last year of breaking through the gate, was eventually declared a non-starter. So I don't know if you count that one against Pink Lloyd or not. But for me, I'll give my boring opinion first. I just don't see how he loses. I feel like he's got the figure edge. I feel like should be able to be tactically enough placed to get a good trip, even though there's not a ton of speed signed on here. And this is a horse who typically does the best running in the lane. But I think Pink Lloyd's going to get the trip. I think he's going to add another notch on his belt in the bold venture. What do you think, Drew? You implied on the phone that you thought you could maybe get clever here, and then when we talked about it before, you didn't sound quite as sanguine about that possibility.
Well, I'll have to use my dictionary for the word sanguine here for a second, but I agree with you. There's not a lot of pace pressure, and it gets me scratching my head. Are the jockeys just going to be looking at the rock star that is Pink Lloyd, aptly named, or is someone going to go and take a bold step forward? And that's where I'm looking for a little value. I don't want to send the mortgage in on this one for sure. But I thought Magical Man, and hopefully the Canadians like that one for our Russian hockey player, the Magic Man, Datsuk, who played the great with the Red Wings. But anyways, Magical Man, I think the horse needs to run the race of his life. The gelding debuted after the 6-month layoff pretty well, got smashed out of the gate, pulled himself into the race, and it just looked good and traveled the farthest of that bunch. The jockey did conserve the horse down the lane, so it was kind of a non-finish, knowing that there's bigger and better things out there. I think with this huge work that was just posted, you may just say, why are we going to try and rate back with Pink Lloyd? Because we know what's going to happen. Let's go on with it. Let's see what happens. So I think at a little price of 20-1, we might have a chance with number 6, Magical Man.
Well, that's very clever, and we've seen you pick these 20-1 shots before that make me say, when we're doing the show, and then they end up running on and getting into the money. So I like your clever idea, certainly one that you could pair with Pink Lloyd as well. One other just logical to mention quickly, even though the horse has always been a closer, just looking at pace figures, be interesting to see what happens with White Flag, with potentially a subtle speed angle. Maybe we'll have to see about the synthetic, but on breeding, you'd think White Flag would be able to handle it. I'm thinking I might mess around in tries with those three. I like your clever idea on Magical Man, but in terms of the pick bets that are going to be happening, I'm going to be sticking with Pink Lloyd in that top spot here in the 7th race at Woodbine. With that, let's move on to the aforementioned plate trial. We are 1 mile and an eighth on the synthetic, and this is a race that I think many are going to see as a match between number 3, Clayton, and number 4, Halo again. How do you see it, Drew?
Yeah, I'm against Clayton in this spot here. I think he got some nice setups at lower company, kind of beating up on some easier. And I think Lucky Curlin, a horse that Clayton ran against 2 back, a horse named Dotted Line number 2 entered in today as my top choice, has ran into the Monster of Cheryl's Spite, ran a good second behind that Lucky Curlin, and I think just projects to have another move forward with a little bit of a class angle. Is 12-1 on the morning line. And Cititard not doing great at the meet, but I trust that he can turn the ship around.
I'm with you in being slightly opposed to Clayton, just based on, in part, I'm reacting to the 4-5 on the morning line. I don't see how in this group that number would make any sense. I was thinking Halo again was just going to get the absolutely perfect trip, license to move up, 2nd race off the layoff. This one can finish his races. I think he could very well get this 9 furlongs here based on pedigree. I feel like Halo again is going to get the perfect trip and have a chance to win this and go on to the Queen's Plate as one of the favorites. I am glad you mentioned Dotted Line, and the observation I was going to make was bringing that Cheryl's Spite form to the table here. And if you take that figure literally, Dotted Line absolutely has a chance despite being 12-1 on the morning line. So I was going to take a wait and see approach and thought that could be very interesting for pointers down the line, not just for the Queen's Plate, but also in terms of what Charles Spite's going to do. Rumors now saying the Kentucky Derby a likely target for that one. A tangential question real quick for you. I know you've been as impressed with Charles Spite as I have. Do you think that horse as a potential sleeper, even though the water is going to get awfully deep in a race like the?
Yeah, if I heard you correctly, the question is how is Cheryl Spite's prospect in the Derby? Is that right?
That is correct.
It's deep waters. I'd like to see a couple more tests before diving into such a big event. But if you had a horse like that, what's it hurt to at that point? So I'm not in that position. It's going to be too tough to say. But I think it's easy to pull the trigger and just see if you can get in. That's what I would think.
We'll see what happens there. It does have a little bit of owner pick the spot feel to it. Roger Atfield being, I thought historically a little more conservative, but hey, Mr. Fipke, he's the owner, and if he wants to take another run in a race, it's going to be an interesting story to follow. I really do think this race could give us a little bit of a line on that form. I mean, if Dotted Line goes and smashes up these horses coming from the other form, it's an indication that Charles Spite's even better than we think he is. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what happens for Halo again for me. Number 2, Dotted Line for you in the plate trial. And with that, we'll move on to the Grade 2 King Edward race, where I thought there was plenty of pace signed on and was very interested in a horse whose form is starting to look a little dirty, but I think March to the Arch really does have excuses for the last several runs, whether he was in over his head or had some trip issues. I think March to the Arch is going to finally get a great setup. I hope we do get the 4-1 of the morning line. This isn't a horse I could stick into as a favorite, but in a race where I have some questions, just in terms of what kind of trips the likes of Silent Poet and Delaware at the top of the market are going to get, I'm very interested in March to the Arch here. Drew, how do you see it?
Yeah, same way. I think to add on here too, March to Arch gets the perfect setup with Admiralty Pier. I've been a longtime fan of this horse, but I think Admiralty Pier has one way to go, and that's with Silent Poet. And then Delaware, I just don't know if this horse is gonna be fast enough with this bunch to keep up and stay in touch with the field. So I know Chad Brown likes to send them from off the pace, but I think the 5-2 will probably get 2-1, just the Chad Brown effect. I just don't see that as good value. So I'm with you. March to the Arch, getting the pace set up with Silent Poet and Admiralty Pier leading the way on the front end.
Very straightforward stuff there from our point of view. Let's move on to the Woodbine Oaks, as I mentioned earlier, often a key prep race for the Queen's Plate this year, happening in September. How do you see this year's Woodbine Oaks?
Yeah, and I wish you went first because I think you might pick this horse too. Merveilleux, the number 7. Does that sound like proper French?
I'm not an expert when it comes to French pronunciation, though many of our fans from Woodbine are, and we'll look for the corrections on your Twitter.
Yes, correct. So I'm going to go with the number 7 here. I was a bit against the 7 in the last out, but I just didn't think it set up too wide of a trip, and it did end up setting up way too wide of a stalking trip, traveling 57 extra feet, was 2 or 3 wide around the first turn. The second turn, again, even wider, trying to chase some speeds. So I think this one sets up perfectly to set that second flight. You have the stablemate of the number 3 Bayou Bell in there to set some pace pressure. And again, I feel like we're saying the same thing over and over every race, but it does feel like there is a good bit of pace in this one. So I'm going with the number 7 Merveilleux at 4-1, and if we can get 4-1, I think that's a great price.
This would be my backup pick. I think it sets up just beautifully for Curlin's Voyage in this spot. I really like the prep run this one's had to go forward, potentially not just for here, but then also the Queen's Plate. What I really like about Curlin's Voyage is the fact that she's got proven route form from last year, and then comes back this year. And I love the 2 sprints to a route pattern in general. I like the improvement she's shown. I like the fact that I think she's tactical enough going sprint to route, especially to stay in touch with the field, and has the kind of late finish I could see passing them all here. I agree with you, and Timeform US agrees with both of us that there is going to be plenty of pace here. I think Curlin's Voyage is just going to get a great run through the race, but I would want Merveilleux as a backup for all the reasons you said. And that was a great note when you look at a product like Trackus and ran 54 feet further than the winner last time and only beaten whatever it was, less than 2 lengths. The math is pretty simple, with 10 feet being about a length in that context. That effort was probably a little better than it looks, and getting Rafael Hernandez certainly adds to the appeal. So I think we're on the right two there in the Woodbine Oaks. Let's move on to the last race. We've got a 3-year-old maiden going a mile on the turf. And the one for me, here's that man again. We just talked about Rafael Hernandez in the last race, and I like his mount, Pardsy, here to potentially be the best speed for Doug O'Neill. This runner's getting on the synth for the first time, I believe, should take to it based on breeding. I like the pace angle. This one should be, I think, sharp and ready to fire coming off those dirt maiden special weight races in New York with the possible pace edge. Pardsy for me in the nightcap. Where did you go, Drew?
I liked Pardsy too at first glance, but Doug O'Neill has never had a runner at Woodbine, according to the DRF formulator. So I thought that was a little interesting that he has never sent a runner north of the border. Fact check me on that. But again, so then I started looking elsewhere, and nothing scared me. So I said, let's find a price. And the number 8, Burning Love, got away super slow. And in a sprint, you guys have taught me too well. If you don't get away in a sprint, think about a 100-meter sprint versus a marathon. If you trip at the beginning of a marathon, it's probably not going to impact your final time too much. If you trip at the beginning of a sprint, 100-meter dash, say, you're going to be probably in last place. So I think this one got away too slow, turned it on late, and I think with the little bit of added distance and the known synth to turf form that this trainer has, that switch, and with the jockey upgrade, that's not crazy at 10-1. So again, nothing really scares me, but the Pardsy, Doug O'Neill never doing this thing. At 4-1, probably drifting down to 3-1. I don't like that price.
It is correct that Doug O'Neill has not, at least in the last 5 years, had a runner at Woodbine, but he probably hasn't had too many Ontario breds, and he's shipped and won everywhere else, including other parts of the world. So I'm not exactly sure why you'd see it as a negative, but it is factual that he's never done it. And hey, I'm never going to knock somebody looking for a reason to take a 10-1 over. You're probably right, a 3-1 based on how much not just final figures but also pace figures can impact the market. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a head-to-head in all these races. Where do you think our biggest disagreement is to come up with a potential head-to-head, Drew?
I think ours is in the 10th, in the Oaks, the big one, with Merveilleux versus Curlin's Voyage, because I just don't think the trip sets up right.
For Curlin's Voyage, you mean? Why not?
I just don't think it's going to be fast. The horse isn't going to be fast enough. And I just feel like Merveilleux is going to have the better position coming around the second turn. It feels that way.
Merveilleux will be in front, I would think, as they're heading for home. I just think Curlin's Voyage has enough late kick and has that sort of bottom to get there. But I'm happy to do that, even though I do like Merveilleux and will be in my own betting using. I think I'm going to be getting the best of it in terms of the market if we just do it straight up. I'll take the 1, you take the 7 in Woodbine Oaks. Is it a wager?
Perfect. Love it.
Excellent. All right. Good stuff from you, Drew. As always, folks can check out your work over at inthemoneypodcast.com. They should also be following you. I referenced your Twitter before, but I didn't tell folks where they can find you. What is your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's just my first name and last name, DREWCOA, T as in Tom, N as in November, EY.
Good stuff. He'll be tagged, obviously, in all the social media that we send around as well. So he's not a hard man to find. It. He's well worth following. Drew, thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to chatting Woodbine with you again very soon.
All right. Thanks, Pete.
I mentioned earlier in the show about this promotion with TwinSpires.com and the TwinSpires app for the free $200 bet. Also wanted you to know that TwinSpires customers get expert picks from the likes of JK on Del Mar and myself on Saratoga. If you use TwinSpires, you can see these expert picks. There's other terrific handicappers participating in the series as well. People like Ashley Mayu, who you've seen on here, and also Nick Tamaro. This is a great feature and just another reason to put your play through TwinSpires.com or the TwinSpires app. We're going to wrap up the show this week with another special guest returning to the In the Money airwaves, making her debut, I think, on the RacingPicks.com Players Podcast, but she's been on the other Players Podcast many times. She is from StableDuel, Bri Mott. Bri, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Life is good. Life is good. Hanging out here in the DG Lounge. Are you in the StableDuel offices, or do you just have a Rachel Alexandra Preakness thing behind you in your home?
No, I'm in the office, and these are kind of our startup offices. We're actually moving to new ones, so I had to select a corner that didn't look so 70s law office. So this is what I got. Soon we're gonna have really, really cool offices, hopefully in the future. But yeah, I guess that's a pretty cool thing to put in there. So
yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Only one of the most popular horses of the last 15 years. So that's good. You're starting from a winning position. Let's talk about StableDuel a little bit. I want to reflect on this really fun co-promotion between Lone Star and StableDuel that we got involved with through Spencer Lugenbuehl of Redboard Rewind. Tell us about that. Tell us about how that all went down last week.
So that was really, really cool. Spencer is great. So pre the Spencer initiative and the In the Money, we actually had talked to Lone Star, and we decided to do the 4-day Lone Star StableDuel standoff. We tried to do it a Texas theme. So for their closing week, and so we had games Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Their big day was Tuesday, and we just had contests each day. And then I spoke to you and Spencer, and we thought we kind of up the ante a little bit and give another initiative for people to play every day, and also for something else to play for. So pretty much it was called Beat the Pro. They had to just beat Spencer, and only 51 people succeeded in doing that over the 4-day series. So super thankful for Spencer to put his life on the line, because that's hard to do. But yeah, he played great. It was really fun. It seemed people had a great time, and obviously played the contest, but we did other things where we did giveaway T-shirts from Lone Star, but it was awesome. The shit talking, the interacting, that's what we live for. So
that's great stuff. And I know Spencer enjoyed getting to put on his pro wrestling heel hat. That's pretty impressive to only get beat by 50 entries over a 4-day span. Yep. I'm afraid he's going to be wanting a raise, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
I'll leave that to you guys.
I don't want to negotiate with heel Spencer. That sounds regular Spencer's such a nice man, but heel Spencer's another kettle of fish. So what's going to happen? How will the winner be determined to get that site credit?
Sure. So out of those 51 people, they can have up to the 4 entries. So every day that they beat Spencer is an entry. So some of them have 4, some of them have 3, some of them have 1 and 2. We're putting them in a wheel today with their number of entries, and we're just going to randomly pick. Actually, Leah England, that's one of her items today. She's going to pick the winner. We're going to announce it, and then they get $250 cash. So we can, do game credit if they want to keep, loading it up in StableDuel, or if they want to take it and run with it, that's fine too. But yeah, one winner coming today.
Very, very cool. And what do we have going on the StableDuel site this weekend?
So we kind of changed stuff up, which is pretty exciting. So today we actually have 3 games. We have another kind of Beat the Pro, if you will. There's a Twitter competition kind of going on. So that's at Monmouth today, a $25 entry. And then we've got $10 buy-ins pay to the top 10 at Del Mar. We had some feedback where some players didn't really like how long we were paying down, where some, 30th place was getting, a low dollar amount, but it was more of a, thanks for playing. So we've decided to change some of the payouts. So $10 top 10 at Del Mar, both Saturday and Sunday. And then we actually have a $1,000 winner take all. So Saturday, it's a $100 entry. But again, if you win, it's $1,000 in your pocket, and then it's a $50 entry on Sunday with a $750 guarantee. But with those, and if people haven't played StableDuel, our pools do grow. So like the more entries that come in, so it's a $1,000 guarantee. But if there's more entries, which there probably will be, that could grow up to like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and that's a $5,000 winner take all. So
awesome.
It's worth putting a couple stables in there.
Definitely, and how appropriate will be in a minute talking about some picks for Del Mar. But before we get to that, I do have one other question on my list here I have to get to talk to you about. You're somebody else we've had a lot of podcasters on the show lately, and you are one as well. Tell folks about your show.
Oh, Chicks with Picks. It's so funny. It's so new and forget about it. But so Chicks with Picks has been super fun with Leah. So Leah England worked for Naira, XBTV. So she's our marketing coordinator. And her and I just get along really well. We kind of have some of the similar crazy stories. And so we started this Chicks with Picks. And part of it is to go through and handicap. But the other side of it is just to cover some fun things in the industry, whether it's the gossip, the drama, the Twitter craziness that goes on, our crazy stories. We both know, I guess, a lot of the connections, which are really just friends to us at this point. And then we're fans of the connections and whatever. So it's just a fun podcast for new fans, for, females, males, whatever. We just are just trying to have fun and, have people enjoy racing and maybe understand it a bit more if they're new. So take a listen if you want. I
love it. I think it sounds really great. I like the idea, and I don't know, maybe it's a tricky line to walk, as sensitive as people are, but the idea of like a gossip column for horse racing is a good idea. And you might be the one to do it. If anybody in this game can pull it off, I think it might be you. So if you can sort of head fake towards it by putting little elements like that. But anyway, that sounds fantastic. I assume folks can find it iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, Chicks with Picks.
Yep, iTunes, Spotify. We do it through Podbean. Obviously, we're kind of new to this, and so, probably should have called you for advice there. But, iTunes, Spotify, and then hit on Twitter, you can do Chicks with Picks, and that's when we tweet it out. And obviously, we do it on our own channels, too. But it's fun.
Fantastic. And you'll be tagged in all the social media that we send out with this, so folks will be able to follow you along and keep on top of all the things that you're up to. Let's talk about these races at Del Mar on Saturday, Bri. We're going to start off with race number 8. It's a hot-looking 2-year-old maiden going 5.5 on the dirt for fillies. I'll go first just because I'm so wildly uncreative in here. Stop me if you've heard this one. This Baffert runner, Illumination, goes as the number 4 in the spot. Looks really, really fast. Has some speed in the dam side of the pedigree. Medaglia d'Oro, though everybody thinks of him as distance, has a terrific record with the juvenile first-time starters, the work tab, the usual blazing Baffert bunch. The paddock and tote will tell us a little bit more, but I was on paper having trouble seeing past Illumination. Do you have anything more creative for us in there?
No, so that horse is definitely working better than the other Baffert horse. I don't want to throw out the Mandela first-time starter. Isn't she lovely? And then I would say just for actually, this is interesting. I want to see what you think. So this sounds like a Game of Thrones character. Mandragora Seeker, the 9 horse. So that horse is the only one in the race that has run before. Obviously, it did not run well. But so what do you put on a horse that has run before but didn't show anything in the run? Would you throw it in there because the experience is in there? Or would you say it obviously hasn't shown anything, I'm still going with the Baffert first-time start?
Normally, I think experience is underrated in these spots. But this being a Saturday 2-year-old race at Del Mar that has not only Illumination, but Isn't She Lovely, as you mentioned, and a couple other firsters that look like they might be something down the line that I was just thinking maybe today isn't the day. When you have this many live-looking firsters and a a one with experience that did no running on a different surface, no less, I'm very happy to fade the horse with experience. But in general, I think you're onto something there. Very often, especially if this was a 2-turn grass race, in those instances, I feel like the experience is almost always underrated by the crowd. And even if it's just a bad, no running dirt sprint, and then they're going 2 turns on the turf up here or at Del Mar, that's when I'll tend to give the experience an extra little bit of a look. So I was happy to fade the Game of Thrones horse here, but I do think you're thinking about things the right way in that 8th race. Let's move on to our 9th race. We have the Solana Beach Stakes. This is the next one of this. They do so many of these 3-year-old grass races out there at actually, this is not, I lied, this one is a 3 and up. I thought this was part of, I remember this race in the past, I thought it was part of that 3-year-old series, but anyway, completely wrong. Ignore that. You've got a horse in here that I actually thought might be the perfect horse for StableDuel, because I mean, the way I would approach the way, I played for Breeders' Cup last year, and I'm looking very much forward, when my head is out of Saratoga so much, to be diving back in again. And I remember that the StableDuel format rewards consistency. So it's tough just to stab, a long shot might be cheap, but then the horse gets beat by too much. It can hurt your overall portfolio. My inclination would be to look for some horses that you can really trust. I feel like Mucho Unusual is a horse you can really trust in this spot, coming out of the steady diet of Grade 1 and Grade 2 races, consistently running good numbers. I just thought, again, not super creative, but might have this field over a barrel. My only interesting angle, such as it is I thought that this Mucho Unusual might be particularly strong in the StableDuel format. How did you see this race?
I agree with Mucho Unusual. I mean, obviously dropping in class, high buyers, could be a good buy, will be expensive in the StableDuel game. If you're looking for more of a value buy, I kind of think the Kitty Boom Boom, and I love to say that name, could be a value buy. I don't know if I love the long layoff going on a mile, but Mike Smith is on this one, jumped off of the Smiling Shirley to get on this one, or however that drama happened. But this at 12-1 would be super cheap in the StableDuel game, and I think this horse should be maybe towards the front, which could give you some points and some value if you needed it.
I like the sound of that. It all depends on the overall composition of your team, where you want to get stuck in, where you want to get a little speculative. Yeah, layoff horses do make me a little nervous in StableDuel for the fear that if they're not fit, they could lose by a bunch. But the fact that Mike Smith bothers to take the call, that might be an indication of readiness in and of itself. So I do think you're probably getting a little bit of value there, given how the pricing works on StableDuel. Let's talk about race number 10, Bri. It's a 3 and up starter allowance going 6 furlongs on the dirt. I'll let you kick off with this one. How do you see it?
I'm not going to lie. I don't understand It's 'Tis Time being 5-2. I kind of don't get it. So I'm very open to your thoughts on that one. Zimba Warrior, I actually selected in a pick 5 at Del Mar, and we won that. Not to say that it paid massive, but I still have love for this horse. I am interested to see what the claim does for it, and then I just won in a $50,000 claimer, but I've got that one in my mix as well. And the other thing, and I actually reached out to you on Twitter about this, the quarter horse PPs is something brand new to me. But either way, the cause and effect with the quarter horse races, I'm not throwing that one into the mix. It just doesn't seem like it can go this extra distance after doing the 1,000 of the quarter horse races. So that's kind of where I'm at, is Zimba Warrior I'm throwing in there. Little Sydney, the 8, I'm interested in that one as well. Won its last time out. I think that one has a shot.
I'm with you that It's 'Tis Time feels a little bit underpriced, as low as 5-2. And of course, that's another thing about StableDuel. In a way, you're able to lock in the price of the morning line on a horse like this. And I just don't see much value there. The overall numbers certainly suggest this one should take some money, but I'm just worried about the trip that It's 'Tis Time is going to get in a race where I don't see a ton of early speed signed on. Timeform US has it as favors the horse on or near the early lead. For me, the horse I thought was going to get the best trip and has competitive numbers is Pyron, the number 6 in this spot, who I could see sitting just off the speed. Mark Glatt, a trainer I trust in these type of spots. Flavian Pratt, obviously worth something out there at Del Mar as well. For me, Pyron was going to be the one I was focusing on. And yeah, those quarter horse PP lines, they can be very confusing. I will typically give them extra credit if you're talking about a much, not a much cheaper level, but a lower level than this. Maiden claimers and things like that, where that abundant speed that the quarter horses have can sometimes be just so decisive. I suppose it could be at the starter allowance level. I just think there are too many with form to take those lines too seriously. But it's not the automatic toss out that I once thought it was. There are definitely situations where, especially in lower level maiden claimers in general, where speed can just prove to be so decisive that I might actually see it as a positive that they were quick enough to compete at that level at all. But some interesting thoughts there, hopefully, for the viewers and listeners in our 10th race at Del Mar, which will move us along to our nightcap, where we've got 3 and up $32,000 claimers going 1 mile and a 16th on the Del Mar turf. Where did you end up in here, Bri, to close things out?
There's a lot going on in this race. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think Contagion and the Jonathan Wong, what do you say, Mythcal, I asked him, I was like, so buddy, what do you think? He's like, worth a shot, but not necessarily a cinch. I would think that horse is going to be in the mix, but for some reason, I'm attached to Mr. Rory. Obviously a major drop. I like Buyers. I know Buyers are kind of a polar thing for people. I'm attached to it from my Team Valor days. It's got high Buyers. They're pretty consistent, and they're dropping from $62,000 optional claimings to a $32,000. So I think that this horse should do well as long as it hasn't lost all these races. But I'm going to stick with the 1. I mean, you got to pick one, and then probably the 4, Contagion. I like that one over the Hunted. And then Ocean Fury was the other one I kind of looked at with a WTF face, because there's a lot going on with Dubai races, but I can't get a handle on that horse to back it. So
I think it feels to me like you're circling around the right runners. One that caught my eye, jockey booking alone, barn switch, and pace figures. Never Easy, I thought, was one worth including. Maybe I'm just becoming maybe I need to get a sculpture of Flavian Pratt or something for when I handicap for my background when I handicap these Del Mar races. But I was thinking with the tactical speed that one has and just enough finish that navigating the trip from the outside post might not be that hard of a thing to do. But I'm with you and like the idea of trying to get some type of a spread going in this race. And I feel like we're mostly centered around the right ones. Where will most of your personal betting be centered this weekend, Bri?
What track? Or
yeah, what track? Since you presumably don't get to play on StableDuel and you have to do your damage at the windows, I was curious where you'll be focused mostly.
Sorry, Pete, say that one more time. You did cut out.
Sure, no problem at all. I was just asking where your betting will be focused this weekend.
I'm going to dabble a little bit at Del Mar for sure. I probably not this. Well, since we've done the work, I might throw some bets on here. I have started to get a little bit more involved in the pick 5s and pick 6s, and I have a blast with those. So I'll probably stick with pick 5s and pick 6s and get some friends involved, and that's always, I think, a lot more fun sometimes than kind of dabbling on your own. So
no doubt about it, and it's a great way in a pool like that where you need to be capitalized to be able to keep your own risk level low and have that extra fun of putting tickets together with friends. I think that's a fantastic idea. We encourage folks to check out Bri on Twitter, to check out the Chicks with Picks podcast, and of course to get involved over at StableDuel. Bri Mott, thank you so much for your time today. We will be talking soon.
Thanks, Pete.
That's going to do it for today's show. I want to thank today's guests, Alan Studer, Drew Coatney, and Bri Mott. Also want to thank our title sponsors from racingpicks.com, our friends at Twin Spires, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, 10 Strike Racing, Woodbine, all the people who've been supporting us. We'll throw Canterbury Park some love in there too. They've got some interesting stuff coming up we'll be talking about on the network. One last ask before I get out of here. If you like the content you get on the In the Money network, please sign up for our newsletter. That helps us out as well. inthemoneypodcast.com/email. You just give us your email, and then you'll get our weekly newsletter that points you to all the content that we are putting out on a weekly basis. Hopefully you'll do that and continue to enjoy everything that we've got going on over here. That's going to do it. Oh, I'll throw in one more big thank you to our man, DJ Unstable, a.k.a. Producer Craig, for all the fine work he's doing. He's been working overtime to bring you this great content, especially now that we've got all this video pumped out. So kudos to him as well. Most of all, though, I'd like to thank all of you, the listeners and viewers, for making these shows so much fun to do. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornital. May you win all your photos.
Just me